This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Lance Lambert from BovedaInc.com. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Todd?
I'm good, man. Big controversy here in Toronto because Yuck Yucks, which is a very famous comedy club, is bringing Louis C.K. there.
Oh.
And I just bought some tickets.
That should be interesting.
I bought some tickets to go. What am I gotta go. I gotta see what the hoopla is about. You know, like I don't know if it's gonna. There might be protesters. I don't know. We'll see if the guy's still funny. I don't know.
I just read up on that.
We'll move on.
Just reading up on that.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes.
Hey, Lance, let's move on.
Yeah, I'll stick to cannabis.
Hey,
Although I was class clown in high school. I love comedy. It's just, not my stick.
I know. I love cannabis. So controversial. Man, is cannabis controversial still?
It is a little taboo, and a lot of stuff going on still. We're still figuring it all out, right?
Every week I ask you, and every week it seems like the stigma has ended. But do you still, in your travels, do you still hear people who are blown away that the idea of legalizing cannabis in your country is even a thought? Like, are people sickened by it still?
No. Since the majority of the American population are pro-cannabis at some level or another, I think we're in a much better place. There's 33 states that have a medical program and or adult use program. And then you have another several states on top of that may have like CBD-only programs like Texas. So I think the majority has spoken. You do still have some hardcore conservatives, dare we call them right-wing conservatives that, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. All of a sudden this, the rights around marriage and the rights around legalizing cannabis and now next mushrooms, the people that just go on about, and nothing wrong with people who have an ideology more centric to the 50s. I think that was a great era. But times are changing, technology has evolved, populations have evolved. It's a new day, and just need to be at least open to it. Maybe not embrace it, just be open to it is all I ask for those that are naysayers.
Lance Lambert at 805 Lance from BovedaInc.com. Hemp's first year as a commercial crop is turning into a disaster with billions of rotting on farms. What is going on with hemp?
Yeah, kind of an extreme story, but I wanted to share that one because it might be blowing it a little out of proportion. But we have seen a substantial increase in hemp crops here in the States. This all came out of, we talked about the Farm Bill Act of 2018. So that all of a sudden allowed states at their own levels to establish these hemp programs. And hemp, again, for those that don't know, it is just a subset of cannabis, sativa, as an actual plant category. But the only difference is that it requires 0.3% or less of THC. So essentially there's a minute amount of THC in hemp. Other than that, cannabinoids, there's CBD, there's other cannabinoids in there, terpenes, all the rest of it. But yes, these farmers who realized that there was a lot more value in a pound of cannabis versus a pound of, say, soybeans or corn, they planted all these crops. That's awesome. That's excellent. But they didn't realize that you don't just chop it down and throw it in a silo. That's not how cannabis, whether it be on the hemp side or the smokable THC flower side, that's not how it works. You still have to dry it. You have to cure it. You have to properly store it in order to mitigate mold and microbial growth. So there are a ton of, just last week alone, talking to one grower with 40 acres trying to figure out what to do. He's like, I thought I just chopped it down, put it in a pile. And it's like, nope, not unless you want to use it only for industrial and textile applications, i.e. Turn it into pulp for paper or maybe, raw goods for clothing industry or something like that. Other than that, if you want it to actually be consumed in some way or another, you need to properly process that product.
Interesting. So is this going to hurt business?
There's going to be a little bit of repercussions from it, just from, I think, those mainstream farmers that were just looking for a different cash crop than what they traditionally grown. And I think there's going to be a kind of awakening of understanding that, no, there's more to it. You really need to learn how to be a hemp farmer before you become a hemp farmer. So I think it is going to be kind of interesting next year. I think we might not have several hundred thousands of acres of at least consumable hemp being grown in the States. They might, again, just shift it over to more of like what China does, which is produce, hectares upon hectares of land for hemp to be used, again, in the textile or commercial application space.
Lance,
we'll see how it looks in 2020.
Sorry about that, Lance, for cutting you off there. And then this, but I mean, in America, there's a pretty historic moment. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the Safe Banking Act, you guys, I don't talk about politics unless I have to, and this industry definitely has pulled me in that direction. But the Safe Banking Act, which you guys might remember, I went out to D.C. to lobby with the Attach board, since I'm on that, and we've successfully gotten the House to sign on. So it's definitely a huge deal. I mean, this Safe Banking Act is passing the House is huge, and by a landslide. I mean, it was phenomenal that this got passed. So this is what's allowing those states that do have legal cannabis programs to do legitimate banking. So that's huge. So again, for us to get through the House, now it's on to the Senate. That might be a little bit trickier, but thankfully, again, it's more of a bipartisan topic. So we have plenty of both Dems and Republicans that are pro on this, and they know it's a safety issue. It's not just about cannabis and the legalization of cannabis. That's actually a different topic. This is about making sure where it is legal, it is safe for folks to actually do banking and not be forced into a cash-only scenario, which we had plenty of conversations about as well.
But yet it's still got to go through one more entire round, right?
Yes, that's very true. So we've got the Senate, we've got Congress. Congress passed it, so now it's time to move on to the Senate, and hopefully they'll move forward as well.
And I know you brought this up in the past, Lance, but the idea that, because you hear a lot of the companies, I mean, listen, I do some brand strategy work even with Halo Labs now, and you think about a lot of the companies out in the United States, whether it's the MedMens or whatever, like how it's still a cash business. We talked about it feels, when you deal with a cash business, it almost feels shadier than it is.
It is. It's so unfortunate because, that money attracts the wrong type of people as well. I mean, again, I've told some situations where holdups or, theft associated with the fact that this is a cash business. And I think that goes back to why, the Safe Banking Act was passed by the House. I mean, we're talking about 321 in favor, 103 opposed. So the fact that we were able to get through to 321 individuals to help them understand that this needs to be treated like a legitimate industry and legitimate business, no more of this cash only. Plus, it really shores things up, right? There's a lot more accountability when you have that actual metric associated with the digital cash side of things versus the green cash, So, again, it's going to make a huge impact if it goes forward.
I feel like I'm out of time, but I'll ask you. I'm sorry if it seemed like a short and condensed segment. I was in a conversation with an author earlier, and who knew an author could talk as well as she writes in terms of a good thing. We had a great interview. But real quick, Lance, the capital of Australia legalized recreational cannabis use now in cultivation.
Huge. Had to share it. I mean, this is something that I woke up to this last week. A friend from Australia sent it over to me straight away. So ACT, or the Australian Capital Territory, which for those that don't know Australia, it's a territory just south of Sydney if you've ever been. But their capital city said yes. As of January 31st, 2020, they're going to allow both consumption and production of cannabis for adult use, or what many call recreational. This is huge because we've been trying to get things to move forward in Australia. They launched a medical program, but it was kind of, dare I say, half-ass launched. There's only so many states and territories that are on board with it. Others that haven't come on board, they still have a very westernized mentality towards cannabis being a Schedule I narcotic. So this is really going to open up the eyes, I think, to the rest of the country, being that the Australian Capital Territory is the one that was first to pass it and just throw their arms up and go, okay, it's legal. They're doing it in Canada. They're doing it in the U.S. They're doing it in South America. They're doing it in Africa. Even in Europe now, it's time. So I'm glad, as a Commonwealth country, similar to Canada, of course, that they're coming on board with it. It was a huge, huge win for the industry and for the people.
Oh, good to know. Well, Lance, I apologize if it seemed a little rushed today, but thank you so much for all your contributions. We'll make sure we make whole next week for a longer one. At 805 Lance is where to follow him. BovedaInc.com, hashtag Boveda Cannabis. They don't touch the plant, but they keep that fresh, that's for sure. And they keep everything fresh, man, and Lance does too. I do appreciate it, man.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.